Families are supposed to be the people who stand by you no matter what. They are meant to be your safety net, the ones who pick you up when the rest of the world tears you down. But what happens when the very people you call family decide you don't belong anymore? What happens when they all look you in the eye and tell you that you're no longer welcome? Not at gatherings, not at holidays, not even in the smallest corner of their lives. I never thought I would hear those words from my own sister, the person I grew up with, laughed with, and trusted with secrets I never told anyone else. But she stood there, her voice calm but sharp like broken glass, and said, "The whole family agreed, you're not welcome at Christmas." The words sank into me like a knife, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just Christmas. It was the message behind it. You are not part of us anymore. You don't matter. You don't belong. And all the sacrifices I had made, the late nights working extra jobs, the times I bailed them out of financial disasters, the way I had always been the first one to step in when they needed help, suddenly meant nothing. But here's the thing they forgot. Every single lifeline they depended on ran through me. I was the one who handled the family accounts. I was the one who made sure the bills were paid, that the house stayed in our name, that their safety net never collapsed. And if they thought they could throw me out of their lives so easily, they were about to learn just how much I mattered, or not welcome at Christmas. My sister said it so casually, as if she were reminding me to take my shoes off before stepping on her carpet. But it wasn't casual, not to me. It was sharp, deliberate, a sentence crafted to wound. I stared at her, waiting for her expression to crack, for her lips to twitch, for her to tell me it was a joke in bad taste. But she didn't. Her eyes stayed cold, her arms folded tight across her chest. She meant it. I felt my stomach sink, a slow descent like an elevator dropping into darkness. "What?" I asked, though I'd heard her clearly. Sometimes you need to hear it twice to believe it. "You heard me," she replied, her voice flat. "We all talked. Mom, Dad, even the cousins. You're not invited this year. It's better if you don't come." The way she said, "we all talked," made my chest tighten. My family had held a secret meeting like I was some problem they needed to solve, and this was their solution: banishment. I glanced at my parents, sitting silently in the living room. My mother's eyes were fixed on her lap, her fingers twisting nervously at the hem of her sweater. My father, usually quick to voice his opinion, sat stiffly in his chair, his gaze locked on the muted TV. No one spoke up for me. No one defended me. The silence screamed louder than my sister's words. "Why?" My voice cracked, breaking the careful mask of calm I tried to hold. I had grown up in this family, shared every Christmas morning with them, every holiday meal, every inside joke. The thought of being pushed out, of being erased, felt unthinkable. My sister sighed, as if she was tired of explaining. "Because you make everything difficult. Every year there's drama. You always act like you're better than us, and honestly we're tired of it. We want peace this year. We deserve that." I laughed bitterly, though nothing was funny. "Better than you. That's what this is about. Because I worked hard, because I built a life, because I don't depend on handouts." Her face flushed, but she didn't answer. She didn't have to. The truth was clear. My success had always been a sore spot. While they stumbled through jobs and scraped together money, I had managed to stay steady, to climb, to provide. Not just for myself but for them. And instead of gratitude, they had turned it into resentment. I wanted to shout at them, to remind them of every time I had sacrificed. The nights I stayed up late balancing accounts to make sure the bills were paid. The money I wired when my sister was drowning in wedding debt. The months I covered Dad's medical expenses without asking for a dime back. I wanted to lay it all out, spread it like evidence in a courtroom, and demand they admit it. But as I looked around the room, the blank stares, the silence, the way no one met my eyes, I realized it wouldn't matter. They had already decided. The verdict was in, and I had been sentenced. Unwanted. The air felt heavy, pressing down on me until I could barely breathe. My chest hurt, my throat burned, and all I could do was stand there, humiliated, while my sister's words replayed in my mind. "You're not welcome. Not welcome." The phrase repeated like a chant, drilling into me. "Fine," I whispered. though the word felt like glass in my mouth. If that's what you want. I grabbed my coat from the chair and pulled it on, my hands shaking so badly I could barely button it. I didn't wait for anyone to respond. I didn't trust myself to stand there another second without either collapsing or screaming. The front door slammed behind me, and the December air hit my face, cold and sharp, but not nearly as sharp as the rejection still echoing inside me. The walk to my car felt endless. My breath came out in ragged clouds, and my legs felt like they belonged to someone else. When I finally slid behind the wheel, the silence of the car was unbearable. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, as tears spilled over and blurred my vision. I hadn't cried in years. Not when I lost my job once, not when I buried my best friend, not even when I signed away the house I loved because I couldn't afford it anymore. But now, sitting in the dark outside my parents' house, I broke down. Because nothing hurts more than being told by your own blood that you don't belong. That night, back in my apartment, I sat staring at the small Christmas tree in the corner. Its lights blinked cheerfully, mocking me. I had decorated it a week earlier, excited for the holiday season, thinking of the laughter and the smell of roasted turkey, the sound of my cousin's kids tearing open presents. I had imagined being there, part of it. Now, the tree felt like a cruel joke, a symbol of everything I wasn't allowed to have. I replayed the conversation again and again, analyzing every detail. Maybe I had said something wrong in the past. Maybe I had been too blunt, too opinionated, too different. But deep down, I knew this wasn't about one fight or one moment. This was years of resentment boiling over. Years of them secretly tallying up reasons to exclude me. They wanted peace, my sister said. But it wasn't peace they wanted, it was control. And I had always been the one they couldn't control. As the days passed, the pain didn't ease. I went through the motions at work, smiled when I had to, but inside I was crumbling. Every commercial with happy families around a Christmas tree felt like a knife twisting in my chest. Every invitation from friends to holiday parties reminded me that my own family had chosen to erase me. I wondered if they were decorating together, laughing at inside jokes, planning the meal without me. Did they miss me? Did they feel even a sliver of guilt? Or was I already forgotten, my absence just a relief to them? Sleep became impossible. I would lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, the words echoing endlessly. Not welcome, not welcome. I tried to distract myself with work, with books, with anything that kept my mind busy. But it always circled back. The rejection was a wound that refused to heal. Then came the anger. At first, it flickered like a small flame, but soon it grew hotter, brighter, impossible to ignore. I thought about every time they had called me for help. Every panicked phone call when rent was late, when a bill was overdue, when the car broke down. I had always answered, always stepped in, always fixed it. I had been their safety net, their problem solver, their silent support. And how had they repaid me? By cutting me out like I was disposable. The unfairness of it all made my hands tremble. I paced the apartment, fury building with every step. They thought they could toss me aside, but they had forgotten something crucial. I wasn't just their black sheep. I was also the one who held everything together. Every family account, every shared responsibility, every lifeline, they all ran through me. And as I stood there, staring at the blinking lights of the tree, one thought crystallized in my mind, sharp and clear. They might think they didn't need me at Christmas. But soon they would learn just how much they had relied on me all along. The days after that confrontation bled together in a strange haze. I went to work, answered emails, smiled politely when people asked me about holiday plans, and yet everything inside me felt hollow. I was moving, breathing, existing, but not really living. The rejection lingered in every corner of my mind, heavy and unshakable. I'd come home each night to my quiet apartment, the blinking lights of the Christmas tree reminding me of what I'd lost. I found myself sitting in the dark more often than not, staring at the tree as if it might answer the questions my family refused to. Why me? Why now? Why so cruel? The sadness was like a storm cloud at first, thick and unrelenting. I felt small under it, powerless. My sister's words echoed whenever I closed my eyes. The whole family agreed. It wasn't just her. It was everyone. That was the part that gutted me. My mother's silence, my father's refusal to look at me, the cousins shifting uncomfortably but never speaking up. It all added weight to the betrayal. I hadn't just lost a seat at the table. I had lost the table itself. But grief has a strange way of transforming when it festers too long. Sadness, when ignored, hardens into something sharper. I noticed it in myself after about a week. The tears dried up, but the thoughts didn't stop. Instead of crying, I found myself pacing. Instead of wishing things were different, I caught myself imagining confrontations, snapping back with the words I should have said that night. My sadness had curdled into anger. At first, the anger felt like a betrayal to myself. I told myself not to feel it, that I should rise above, that I shouldn't stoop to their level. But the more I replayed everything I had done for them, the more impossible it became to ignore. I thought of my father, who wouldn't have his house if I hadn't stepped in when foreclosure loomed. I thought of my sister's wedding, which would have been a courthouse affair if I hadn't quietly covered the catering bill she couldn't afford. I thought of my mother's medications, half of which were only possible because I made sure they were paid on time through the family accounts. All of it ran through me. And yet they had sat together, nodding in agreement, while she told me I wasn't welcome. That night I opened my laptop. The glow of the screen lit up the dark apartment, and my fingers hovered over the keyboard. I typed in the familiar login details to the accounts I had managed for years. My family had trusted me with it all. Joint funds, emergency savings, even the household bills were linked through me. It had started as a convenience, a way for me to keep track and make sure nothing fell through the cracks. Over time it had become routine. I didn't think about the power it gave me because I never misused it. I was their safety net, invisible and dependable. Till now. The dashboard loaded, and rows of numbers filled the screen. Balances, transactions, upcoming payments. It was all there, tidy and under control. I stared at it for a long time, my heart racing, my hand frozen on the mouse. Part of me hesitated. Was I really going to do this? Was I going to cross a line I could never uncross? I told myself I should be better than that freezing the accounts would make me the villain in their eyes. But then again, wasn't I already the villain? They had already cast me out, already painted me as the source of all their drama. Maybe it was time to stop protecting people who had never truly protected me. Click. One account at a time I halted the transfers. I cancelled the automatic payments. I restricted access to the cards they used so casually without thinking twice. Each click was like an exhale I'd been holding for years. For the first time since my sister's words, I felt something other than pain. Felt control. When I finally closed the laptop, the apartment was still dark, the tree still blinking softly in the corner. But I felt different. Not healed, not whole, but steady. Stronger. They had told me I didn't belong, but the truth was, they had been leaning on me all along. And now, they would feel the absence of me in more ways than one. The first call came the next morning. I let it go to voicemail. My phone buzzed again in the afternoon, my mother's number flashing across the screen. Then my cousin, then my sister. By evening I had 5 missed calls and 2 voicemails waiting. I didn't listen to them right away. I poured myself a glass of water, sat at the kitchen table, and waited until I was calm before I pressed play. The first voicemail was from my mother. Her voice was tight, controlled, but I could hear the panic underneath. "Honey, something's wrong with the bank accounts. Your father's card got declined at the pharmacy. Can you check? Please call me back." The second voicemail was from my sister. "No panic, just fury. What did you do? Don't play games with me. Fix it. Now." I set the phone down slowly, a smile tugging at the corners of my lips for the first time in weeks. "Fix it," she said. As if I was still her problem solver, her safety net, her invisible cushion. As if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Over the next few days, the calls multiplied. Sometimes they tried pleading, sometimes threatening, sometimes guilting me with words like family and forgiveness. My father finally called. His voice softer than I'd expected. "We need you to fix this," he said quietly, as if the words burned on the way out. "You can't just leave us like this." I almost laughed. Leave them like this? Wasn't that exactly what they had done to me? They had left me out in the cold, told me I didn't belong, erased me from the picture. Now they wanted me to step back in and save them. The hypocrisy was staggering. At night, lying awake in the quiet, I thought about what I'd done. Guilt pricked at me sometimes, whispering that I was cruel, that I was punishing them too harshly. But then I remembered sitting in that living room, my sister's eyes like stone, my parents silent, no one lifting a finger to defend me. I remembered the way the air had felt so final, so absolute. "You're not welcome." No hesitation. No second chances. If they could live with casting me aside, then they could live with the consequences. Christmas approached like a storm cloud. I imagined them gathering without me, trying to piece together a celebration while scrambling to cover bills and expenses they never had to think twice about before. I pictured my sister, the one who had delivered the sentence, fuming as her credit card was declined at some last-minute shopping trip. The image didn't bring me joy exactly, but it brought me peace. A balance restored. And so I didn't answer the calls. I didn't reply to the messages. I sat in my apartment on Christmas Eve, the tree glowing softly in the corner, and let the silence settle. It wasn't the holiday I had imagined, but it was mine. For once, I wasn't the one sacrificing, the one smoothing things over, the one carrying the weight of everyone else. I was just me, and that was enough. Christmas morning arrived with an odd kind of stillness. I woke up to the faint glow of sunlight slipping through the blinds, the air in my apartment quiet except for the hum of the radiator. For years, Christmas morning had been chaotic. My phone buzzing non-stop with messages from cousins, my parents calling to remind me not to be late, the sound of kids tearing into wrapping paper while adults tried to corral the mess. This year there was nothing. My phone sat silent on the nightstand, as if it too had accepted my exile. I lay there for a while, staring at the ceiling, listening to the muffled sounds of the city outside. Somewhere, other families were already gathered around their trees, laughter echoing through their living rooms. Somewhere, parents were sipping coffee while their children shrieked with joy at new toys. Somewhere normalcy existed. But not here. Not in my world. I felt the sting of it, sharp and cutting. I was alone, not because of circumstance, but because the people who should have wanted me there had chosen otherwise. Still, there was a strange comfort in the quiet. No forced smiles, no sitting at a table where I wasn't wanted, no pretending everything was fine. This silence was mine. It belonged to me, and no one could take it away. I sat up, pulled the blanket around my shoulders, and stared at the little tree in the corner. Its lights twinkled faintly, reflecting off the ornaments I had hung alone. For the first time I allowed myself to see it differently. Not as a mockery of what I'd lost, but as a symbol of something else. My survival, my independence, the fact that I had built a space that belonged only to me. The peace didn't last long. By noon, the phone began to buzz. At first, I ignored it, letting the vibrations rattle against the wooden nightstand. But eventually, curiosity got the better of me. I picked it up, swiping through the string of missed calls and messages. My sister had sent 6 texts in a row, each more frantic than the last. "Did you mess with the accounts again? This isn't funny. The store wouldn't take my card. I had to leave everything at the counter. Fix it." Then another softer. "Mom is crying. She doesn't know how to pay for the food. Please." I scrolled further. A voicemail from my mother, her voice breaking. "Honey, I know things are bad between us, but it's Christmas. Please can't you just help us this one time? The kids are here. They don't understand why things aren't the same." I set the phone down, my chest heavy. For years, I had been the one to step in when everything fell apart. My family never had to think about money or logistics because I always handled it. Now, with the accounts frozen, the cracks were showing. Their holiday wasn't going smoothly. The kids weren't opening piles of gifts. The table wasn't overflowing with food. Their picture-perfect Christmas was unraveling without me holding the strings together. Part of me ached at the thought of my mother crying, of the younger cousins sitting confused in front of an empty tree. I wasn't heartless. I hadn't frozen the accounts to hurt the children. I had done it to show the adults, the ones who had banished me, that they couldn't pretend I didn't matter. And yet, guilt prickled at the edges of my resolve, whispering that maybe I'd gone too far. I stood and paced the apartment, the floor creaking under my steps. Did they even understand why I had done it? Or did they see me as nothing more than cruel, vindictive, petty? The thought gnawed at me. But then I remembered the look on my sister's face that night, the finality in her voice, the way the others had sat in silence. They hadn't hesitated to cut me out. Why should I hesitate now? By mid-afternoon, the calls had shifted in tone. My cousin left a message dripping with anger. You ruined Christmas. Do you understand that? Everyone's miserable, and it's because of you. You're selfish. You've always been selfish. The irony almost made me laugh. Selfish. That was the word they chose. After years of me sacrificing so they didn't have to. After carrying weight they never even saw. If this was what selfish looked like, maybe I should have tried it sooner. I ordered Chinese food for dinner, the scent of fried rice and sesame chicken filling the apartment. It wasn't turkey or ham, but it was warm and it was mine. I ate by the glow of the tree, sipping soda while my phone continued to buzz across the table. I didn't answer. I didn't owe them an explanation. For once, I let their chaos stay theirs. Later that evening, I sat on the couch with a blanket wrapped around me, scrolling through old photos on my phone. There we were last Christmas, me holding my nephew while he giggled, my sister smiling beside me, my parents in the background with glasses of wine. We had looked like a family then. But the memory felt like it belonged to strangers now. They had chosen to rewrite my place in that story, to cut me out like I was nothing. As midnight approached, I realized something. The day hadn't broken me. I had dreaded it for weeks, convinced I would collapse under the weight of being excluded. But here I was breathing full alive. Lonely, yes, but not destroyed. And that realization carried a quiet kind of power. Outside, fireworks crackled faintly in the distance, a few early celebrations lighting up the night sky. I walked to the window, watching the colors bloom and fade against the dark. Somewhere out there, my family was stewing in their frustration, trying to piece together a holiday without the support they'd always taken for granted. Maybe they were angry at me. Maybe they were already plotting how to pull me back under their control. But for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of what they thought. I turned back to the tree, its soft glow filling the room, and whispered to myself, I survived. It wasn't a victory chant, not yet. But it was enough. I knew the fight wasn't over. Freezing the accounts was only the beginning, and there would be fallout, demands, maybe even attempts to punish me for daring to stand up for myself. But tonight, on Christmas night, I let myself rest in the knowledge that I had reclaimed something more important than their approval. I had reclaimed myself. And as I crawled into bed, the phone buzzing one last time on the nightstand, I didn't reach for it. I let it ring. Because tonight, for the first time in a long time, the silence was not my enemy. It was my peace. The days after Christmas passed in a strange, heavy silence. While the rest of the world packed away their decorations and wrote lists of resolutions, I carried the weight of unanswered calls and unread messages. My phone was still full of their voices, each one a mixture of anger, pleading, or blame. But I didn't listen anymore. I had heard enough on Christmas Day to know exactly how the pattern would continue. They were desperate, and when desperation didn't move me, they shifted to guilt and cruelty. I had spent years bending under the pressure of their needs. Now I stayed upright. Still, the guilt wasn't entirely gone. At night, when the apartment grew too quiet, my mind replayed my mother's voice, trembling, pleading, asking for help, just this once. I pictured her sitting at the kitchen table, her hands covering her face, while my father paced the room, frustrated at a situation he couldn't control. A part of me wanted to reach out, to ease the burden, if only for them. But then I remembered how easily they had let my sister speak for all of them, how none of them had said a word in my defense. Silence is just as loud as rejection. That thought reminded me why I had drawn the line in the first place. The first cracks appeared in the family only a week after Christmas. Word reached me through an aunt who didn't know she was betraying their confidence. She called to wish me a happy new year, her voice cheerful, unaware of the tension simmering under the surface. In her rambling chatter, she mentioned that my sister and her husband had gotten into a shouting match because the rent check bounced. "It's strange," she said lightly. "You always used to make sure things like that didn't happen." She didn't mean it as an accusation, but I heard it that way all the same. For once, though, I didn't rush to explain or fix. I just made a vague noise of sympathy and let her keep talking. Within 2 weeks, the calls from my parents changed. My mother's messages no longer pleaded. They scolded. "This is childish," she said in one voicemail. "You've made your point. Enough is enough." My father's voice was harder, colder. "You're punishing your family for no reason. You think you're teaching us something, but all you're doing is driving us apart. Driving them apart." The irony almost made me laugh. I hadn't driven anyone apart. I had simply stepped back, and in the space I left behind, they were finally seeing the cracks they had ignored for years. I wasn't the glue anymore, and without me, things didn't hold together so neatly. The arguments that had been simmering under the surface, about money, responsibility, blame, were now spilling out unchecked. By the 3rd week I started hearing stories. My cousin messaged me privately, her tone more curious than accusatory. "What happened between you and everyone else? Things are a mess. Your sister isn't talking to your mom, and your dad's furious all the time. They keep snapping at each other." I read the message twice, then set the phone aside. I didn't reply. I wasn't ready to explain that this wasn't just one fight. It was the breaking of years of imbalance. And besides, if my cousin hadn't noticed how one-sided everything had been before, she wasn't going to understand now. But hearing that they were unraveling gave me a complicated sense of satisfaction. For years, they had leaned on me without even acknowledging it. Now, stripped of that silent support, they were exposed. I didn't need to punish them further. Their own dysfunction was doing that for me. And still, deep down, I wished it hadn't come to this. One evening, about a month after Christmas, my sister showed up at my apartment. I didn't expect it. I almost didn't answer when the buzzer rang. But curiosity got the better of me, and I pressed the button to let her in. She arrived at my door looking tired, her hair pulled back hastily, her coat wrinkled. The confident, sharp-tongued sister who had told me I wasn't welcome was gone. In her place stood someone frayed at the edges. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice softer than I'd heard in years. I hesitated, then stepped aside to let her in. She perched on the edge of the couch, her hands twisting together in her lap. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The tension was thick, almost suffocating. Finally, she broke the silence. "Everything's falling apart. Mom and Dad are fighting constantly. The bills aren't getting paid. I can't do this." Her voice cracked, and she pressed a hand over her eyes. "I didn't realize how much you were handling. I thought you just wanted control. But now," she trailed off, shaking her head. Her words were a mixture of confession and excuse. I felt the anger rise again, remembering her cold certainty when she had cast me out. "You didn't realize?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. "After all these years? After all the times I bailed you out, all the nights I stayed up fixing problems you didn't even know about, you didn't realize?" She winced, but she didn't argue. Instead, she whispered, "I'm sorry." The apology hung between us, thin and fragile. Part of me wanted to grab it, to hold on to it as proof that I hadn't been crazy, that I hadn't been exaggerating their ingratitude. But another part of me didn't trust it. Was she sorry for what she'd done to me, or sorry for the mess she now had to face without me? "I can't just forget what you said," I told her quietly. "Do you know what it felt like? To stand there, listening to you tell me I wasn't welcome, and everyone else just sat there. No one said a word. Do you know how that felt? Tears filled her eyes, and for once, she didn't have a quick reply. She just nodded slowly, as if admitting that she finally understood, at least a little. We sat in silence for a long time. Eventually she stood, pulling her coat tighter around her. "I don't expect you to fix this," she said softly. I wanted you to know I'm sorry." Then she left, the door clicking shut behind her. I stood there for a long time, staring at the door, my emotions tangled into knots. Her apology didn't erase the pain, but it shifted something inside me. For the first time I saw the possibility that maybe, just maybe, they were beginning to understand what they had done. But even with that glimmer, I knew things couldn't return to the way they had been. Trust, once broken, doesn't snap back into place. It bends, warps, reshapes. My family might have realized how much they had depended on me, but that didn't mean I was ready to give myself back to them so easily. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about the future. The accounts were still frozen, and I had no plans to unfreeze them soon. If they wanted stability, they would have to learn to build it themselves. For the first time in years, I felt no obligation to rush in and fix everything. They had chosen to push me out, and now they were learning to live without me. And as much as it hurt, there was freedom in that.